Hi, this is Chris Young. Welcome to episode 99 of Contemplating Life. In my previous episode, I talked about a taped lecture by Reverend Terry Fulham, which was an essential part of my return to the Catholic Church in my late 20s after having left in my late teens. After writing and recording that episode, I realized that the theological topics I discussed were relevant to our democracy and the current political turmoil and divisiveness we are experiencing. In that episode, I discussed the Christian theological concept of the mystical body of Christ. It stems from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 12, where Paul uses the analogy of a body to describe the church. There was a dispute in the Christian community of Corinth over different kinds of spiritual gifts. Some were arguing that certain gifts were more important than the others. Now, if you're not a believer, when I say spiritual gifts, perhaps just substitute the phrase natural talents and abilities. For Paul, describing spiritual gifts is his way of describing the innate value of a human being. Paul was making the case that the Christian community was like a body. All parts of the body must work together towards the same goal. You can't claim that a part of the body doesn't belong just because it's different from yours. In chapter 12, beginning with verse 12, he says, "As the body is one, though it has many parts, all are parts of the body, though many, are one body. So also Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, slaves or free persons, and were all given to drink of the one Spirit." Now the body is not a single part, but many. If a foot should say, "Because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body," it does not for this reason belong any less to the body. Or if an ear should say, "Because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body," it does not for this reason belong any less to the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God placed the parts, each one of them, in the body as he intended. If they were all one part, where would the body be? But as it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, "I do not need you," nor the head to the feet, "I do not need you." Indeed, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are all the more necessary, and those parts of the body that we consider less honorable we surround with greater honor, and our less presentable parts are treated with greater propriety, whereas our more presentable parts do not need this. But God has so constructed the body as to give greater honor to a part that is without it, so that there may be no division in the body, but the parts may have the same concern for one another. If one part suffers, all the parts suffer with it. If one part is honored, all the parts share its joy. Now you are Christ's body, and individually parts of it. Paul is reminding the community of Corinth that they're all dedicated to the same basic principles, living out the gospel message as a Christian community and putting into practice the teachings of Jesus Christ. I think that analogy is useful in our current society, which, like ancient Corinth, is debating the relative value of the members of its community. We are devaluing the contribution of immigrants, despite the fact that our economy is dependent upon immigrant labor to harvest our food, work in the hospitality industry, and provide other essential services that we often take for granted. The religious right seems to ignore the Christian values of welcoming strangers and foreigners, and caring for the poor and needy. It's ignoring the spiritual gifts that these fellow human beings possess. In the previous episode, I shared a story told by Reverend Fulham about a woman who was paralyzed. She said that her body was a parable or a metaphor of what was wrong with the church. She lives in a body that is unresponsive to her will. She can imagine her body walking, running, hiking, swimming, but her body doesn't respond. Reverend Fulham extends that metaphor to someone with a spastic body, such as friends of mine who had cerebral palsy. There is no lack of movement in their body, but their body is not under the control of their mind. The body moves independently without coordination. Reverend Fulham says that many in the church think they are doing God's will, but they're just flying around doing things without really listening to what their faith is calling them to do. And I extend that metaphor to my own body, which does not respond to my will because my muscles are too weak to be effective. This represents those of weak faith, who fail to put their faith into practice. So this morning, as I was listening to that episode, proofreading for edits or revisions, I realized that this analogy has much to say about our society today. We live in a democracy. We are the head of that body, as well as the individual parts. Public opinion polls reveal that the majority of our population is dissatisfied with the policies and practices of our government. Our nation is a body that is unresponsive to our will. Some parts of the body are completely inactive, like the parts of a paralyzed body. They lack the incentive to participate in our democracy and are content to lie there motionless and helpless. Some parts of our body believe themselves to be powerless. They have weak faith in our democratic institutions, in the same way that my muscles are weak and unresponsive to my will. A huge majority of our body is running around pretending that they're doing something useful, yet they're woefully out of touch with the will of the people. We will refrain from any accusations of why this is so. This essay is not about questioning people's motives or pointing fingers. Until we recognize that we are the head of the body, this country, and until we recognize that each of us is an indispensable part of that body, with a critical role to play in our society, and until we recognize that our neighbor, regardless of their race, religion, country of origin, or sexual orientation, is also a member of that body, and is essential to its proper functioning, we will lack the power to work effectively for the common good, for the good of the body, our country, a democracy. We'll continue to exist in a body that is unresponsive to our will. St. Paul said, "You then are the body of Christ, and each of you is part of it." I say to you, you then are the body of America, and each of you is a part of it. As yet, there's no cure for what's wrong with my body. But there is a cure for our handicapped body of America. We have to participate. We have to do our part. And we have to love and respect our fellow human beings who are part of that same body. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Tell me what you think. Leave comments or questions wherever you found this podcast. As always, if you find the podcast educational, entertaining, enlightening, or even inspiring, consider sponsoring me on Patreon for just $5 per month. Thank you to my financial supporters. That means more to me than words can express. Please post links and share this podcast on social media so I can grow my audience. I just want more people to be able to hear my stories. I'll see you next time as we continue contemplating a life. Until then, fly safe, everyone.